And we are live with the Nukika Talks, and I am talking to Agnes Mortensen, and she is the founder of Tari. Tari means seaweed in Faroese. And Agnes, nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And what is seaweed?
Seaweed is defined as we call them macroalgae in English, or more biology language, and they are algae, so they do photosynthesis. That's the way they produce their own energy, just like higher plants, grass and flowering plants. But algae are considered to be evolutionary, the forerunners, the old organisms that use the green pigment chlorophyll to do photosynthesis. So and you can divide algae or into the big algae, which are the seaweeds, the macroalgae, and then you have the microalgae, which are typically very small and maybe with just one cell big. So seaweeds are macroalgae.
Macroalgae, and they are very old. So are they older than plants?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
And how long have you had an interest in seaweed?
I've been interested in seaweeds since I was quite young, maybe a big teenager or so, and I've been very interested in nature and biology, and that was my way into algae, because I was interested in biology, and so I decided to study biology and go in that direction, not really knowing that I was at some point going to work with them commercially, but more the biological interest in these organisms, how they live, and how they their life processes, where they grow. Maybe also they are connected to the ocean, so they grow in the ocean, but they're also based on land, because they do grow on rocks, and sometimes they're covered with seawater, other times they're not, so they're there, but then all of a sudden they're not. So there's also something a little bit mysterious about them, and to study them properly, you need to dive into the ocean to look at them. So they were quite fascinating for me when I was very young.
When did you decide that you wanted to do a startup focused on cultivating seaweed?
I think it came. I never really decided that now I'm going to do that. It just started a little bit by itself, because when I was after studying biology in Copenhagen, I came back to the Faroes and I started working as a biologist, but I didn't really have one specific job, so I did all kinds of things. And also maybe the fact that in the Faroes there is this interest for nature in such a way that the question is, from Faroese people, what can you use this for? What can you do with the algae? Can you eat them? If you can't eat them, most people are not really interested. So I very soon found out that the people around me asked me questions that I hadn't really thought so much about, because I was just fascinated by the organisms themselves. So I was also becoming more curious to what can they do, what can we use them for, and is this a potential that we have in our natural area. And then I was also asked to, I was teaching a little bit, I was doing all kinds of odd jobs. So I decided to establish my company. And this was, back in 2007 or 8 or something like that. But then I went away again and I did a PhD and I, studied algae more. And then after returning from my PhD and getting more settled in the Faroes, I teamed up with my brother, and he is much more of you know um, an entrepreneur than I am. So we decided to go into this together, and then we, in a more serious way, started to cultivate and process algae, and then started thinking more about them as a product and something that you could sell and produce. And yeah, so it came a little bit, bit by bit, and then we ended up with a proper company.
And seaweed, it's a hot product now. When you started, was it a hot product? Was it for me?
No, it was not at all, and nobody was even talking about it. People were rather asking me, so why are you studying these organisms, and what are you thinking? How are you thinking you can use that for anything in the future? But I was just thinking that, when you enter university, that's your chance to study whatever you like, because if I studied seaweeds or something else, I would still end up as a biologist. So my idea was that, if I can't study or work with seaweeds when I you know grow up and get a proper job, then I will just be a biologist and do whatever. So, but then as time went by and I was getting close to finishing my education, the world had moved, and all of a sudden it was becoming a really hot topic. And that was a bit strange, because the algae had always been something that nobody talked about. But all of a sudden, everybody was talking about them. And so it has been a bit of a strange process, but it's also, that was maybe also pushing me into the direction of seeing the broader potential in them, because the world was also changing around me. And yeah, and a demand started appearing, so people were interested in buying seaweeds for food and other purposes also.
What is the purpose of seaweed? As I know that it's has become in recent years known as a superfood, full of nutrients and cheap to grow. But what besides food? First, let's get into food. What can you do with seaweed as a food? Where is the potential? How to use it? Is it a spice? Is it a vegetable? Do you use it in salad? Yeah.
No, I mean, it's not a meat and it's not a vegetable. It's more like something you add to the food. It can be. I would not call it a spice either. I would call it a taste enhancer. It's the umami. So you add it to your food, and it will give you a taste, a better taste. It won't give you. It won't give the food a taste. It will give the food a taste of just more of the lovely ingredients that are there already. So it's a taste enhancer. So you can, instead of using a Maggie cube or whatever people use, seaweeds are very good at giving that effect to food. And it's a good food to eat, because it is full of especially fibers. So
Yeah.
it adds fibers to your diet, and fibers are good for our intestines to function well, because they are for the good bacterial flora in our intestines. And fiber is really something that people in our part of the world do not eat enough of, and a lot of people do have problems with digestion and getting their intestines to function properly. So I see it as a food or as a taste enhancer that gives good flavor to your food, and also something that you should eat, and especially because of the fibers. And then you get other stuff also, but the fibers are really important.
You mentioned the taste of umami. I remember the first time I heard about that, it was like a hidden taste that was not considered. It's umami. Isn't that the taste like you have in cheese when it gets this taste in various traditional food and some kinds of fish?
Yeah,
So
like the food and
yeah, so you can add a little bit of
it's not
that
really
taste.
a defined taste, but it's just it's a good taste. It gives you it gives the food a good taste and a flavorful taste.
Yeah, it's like a very strong ingredient that it is really good to add a little bit in.
Yeah, you should think about it as seaweed can function as a taste enhancer. So whatever your food tastes of, then the seaweed can come in, give that a lift. And also when you start using seaweed as a taste enhancer, then you probably find yourself using much less salt because
Yeah,
the food tastes more, so you don't need to like over salt the food, which is also one of the dietary problems that we have in our society, that salt is our food is often very, very salty.
yeah, it's overused. So I can imagine
Yeah,
that there are many restaurants are experimenting with seaweed. Famous chefs are trying it out.
yeah, they
So
are.
it's
Yeah, they definitely are, and they're trying to use it for different purposes. And yeah, it's interesting what they are figuring out, and that's very important, for a company like ours, that there are chefs who lead the way, because I'm a biologist, so I am not necessarily very knowledgeable about how to use it in food. I have my own way of using it because I thought when I was selling it I needed to figure out how to use it, so I use it in my own way. But I think it is extremely important that chefs who are really knowledgeable about taste and how to work with food do experiment, and hopefully we can have seaweed as just a normal ingredients in our kitchen, and then people get the fibers they need, and maybe some of the bioactive compounds that are in the seaweed that can come in, just make all of us a little bit more healthy.
and I know that here the Faroe Islands, there are a few people who are into seaweed, and it's over the past, I don't know, 3 years, it's got become a thing. For 2 years ago, I didn't know about the seaweed. I can eat it. You're growing seaweed in the Faroe Islands. It was a bit weird. But how is it? Is it only here in the Faroe Islands, or is it the beginning? You see seaweed farms, seaweed innovations. Is
No,
it around?
yeah, it's all around our area. So the Faroe Islands, Norway, Scotland, Ireland, um, and also further south. I mean, in France, there is also seaweed industry or production going on, and I think there is access to good seawater. People are, and also in Iceland, people are trying to build this production more. In Iceland, there is people have been eating seaweed, really, I think always. So it's just in the Faroes we haven't really used it very much. We have been using it as fertilizer, so we have a long history of using seaweed as fertilizers. But as food, it has not really been acknowledged as good at all. But then again, if you ask older people that are living now, they will all say that they ate it as when they were children, when playing in around the seaside. they would eat it. But then, when they grew up, they stopped eating it because it wasn't a part of the food culture as such. It was just something when children were out playing, they were just trying to eat it from the rocks. So yeah.
It grows so fast. It's very you get a lot of volume because I've heard it's not a slow yield. How is it with how
No,
fast does it grow?
no, it grows. When it goes quickly. Well, also depending on the species. So we do have seaweed is not just like one thing. It's many species. So we only here in the fair we grow maybe 3 species of seaweed, and they are a little bit different in how fast they grow and how much you get out. I mean, how big the yield is. And then it's also, you can only grow seaweed outside on your sea farm when the sunlight is there. So, through winter time, the seaweed is not really growing. I mean, it can be sitting there if you like them to sit there, but they are not producing more biomass because there is not enough light for them to do photosynthesis. But the normal, so the methods we use is that we have a land-based, we call it a hatchery. That's where we seed the rope with the spores from the species that we want to grow on our farm. And we do that around this time. So we will start our next round of seaweed production. Well, some of it is already going in the hatchery. So in the hatchery, we have tanks and we pump seawater in, and it runs through filters, and then it goes into our tanks, and then it goes out again. And in a week or two, we will be seeding the first ropes with the brown algal species that we produce for food, which is called Alaria esculenta. It's a very nice food seaweed. And then it will be in our hatchery, in our tanks for around 3 weeks to a month. And then we will put it out on our farm, which is located in one of the fjords here in the. And then it will be there from around late October to somewhere in mid-June, and that's when we harvest. So we harvest the entire crop in mid-June because that's where we get really, really good quality, and we also get quite a lot of biomass. So we could choose to let it grow a bit further because there is lots of sunlight when you enter July and August. But the quality of the crop declines very rapidly from after late June until August. It will go from being really, really high quality food to not food at all because it gets really overgrown with kinds of other small animals that sit on it and kind of spoil it. So the quality is changing very rapidly over the summer. So there comes a point where you have to say, fine, we want more biomass because we want the biomass to be the best quality. So there is a specific point where we harvest everything, and then the sea farm is basically empty until we put the next batch the following, like late fall to winter. So yeah, it's a fast growing season.
Where does the seaweed end? Where is the end supplier who consumes most of it?
Yeah. So yeah, we do supply to different markets, but our main, so we do for food, and most of that food goes either as like finished food products in our own like brand. So we have different products that we sell to end users, and then we also sell more as an ingredient, and that we sell to chefs and and other companies want to put it into their products. So yeah, so like finished anything. We have also been selling a little bit to the feed market, and that's feed for mostly for horses. So it's quite specific. But then we also do a completely different product. It's also seaweed based. The methods are basically the same, but there we use another species called the Saccharina latissima. It's also a brown seaweed. We don't produce that one for food because it's very high in iodine. So we consider it maybe not so good a food seaweed as Alaria esculenta, which is the one we mainly produce for food. But this Saccharina latissima we sell to we make these structures and we sell them to the salmon industry here in the fair. They put these we call them shelters. So the product is called Aquanest, and that functions as shelter of living seaweed that's growing. We put that into the aquaculture cages where the salmon is, and also at the salmon farm they use fish that function as fish, and the cleaner fish they eat lice of the salmon, and these cleaner fish they need shelter to stay alive in the salmon cages. So the aquanest that we produce, they are shelters for dinner fish. So that's a very different production that we have, and it's not food, but it's like it's more like a tool to get these cleaner fish to thrive better in the cages. So it's helping their like welfare. Yeah, and these aquanests they grow, and they become big seaweeds, and there's quite a lot of biomass in the end of seaweed in the salmon cages. And then the idea is that the seaweed biomass from these aquanests is being produced, is being turned into biogas, and then energy is made out of the rest product, and the solid phase of that, the thing that can't be produced or turned into gas, will be used as fertilizer. So it will end up as fertilizer on the land again. So so we're doing different things, and that's one way to survive as a seaweed business in the North Atlantic, because it's very difficult to survive on just selling seaweed for food.
It seems like there's so much innovation, and seaweed, it seems like also it's in the early stage of the potential. So where do you see it going? Where is it green fuel? Is it what clothes? Can you make clothes out of seaweed? What?
Yeah. I mean, there are many possibilities. For me and for Tari, so if we want to reach like the clothing market, or bioplastics or fuel or whatever, then you need huge quantities of seaweed. We are maybe aiming more for high-end markets, so to sell the seaweed as a high value product, for example high quality food or supplements of some kind, because then you can produce a certain amount, and then you can sell whatever you produce for quite a lot of money, or more money than you can sell for if you try to enter if you want to sell it as for biofuels or something. So for us, I don't know what the future will be, but at this point we are rather interested in going for high value markets, meaning that we go for high quality and maybe not quantity is not, our foremost aim. We would rather, we are very quality minded, and also, the biological aspect of it. It's in my head, it's more sustainable to produce only the best quality and sell it for as much as you can, because then you don't need to use the area, the natural area, the fjord, that where we do the production, more than necessary. So you have a short growing period. You only produce what you can sell for, to the best paying markets, and that means you are not over excessively using the area, like the farm area, because people are thinking about seaweed cultivation as something that does not have any negative impact.
Mm.
But I do not agree with that at all. I think if we go into very, very large scale farming and we use the area surrounding the Faroes and maybe big parts of the fjords, and also outside the fjords, we can easily impact the natural area, and we can also, with um, pushing too much production into one area, you can end up in situations where disease is developed, or we have seen that many times before, that if you push an ecosystem too much, um, then you can run into problems. So I'm more interested in doing very controlled productions, and also aiming for very, very high quality, and I know for a fact, since I've been doing this for a few years now, that if we manage to fit our methods into the seasonality of the natural area, and and not push the environment more than necessary, then we get the finest quality out, and we leave almost no trace in nature after we finish.
That's a very good point. That anything, even if it's something that you see is more sustainable than other things, if you push
Mm.
it just as much as possible, overdo it, you
Yeah,
disrupt the ecosystem.
yeah.
Um, what I'm thinking is like supplements and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Because you're producing high quality, so you can probably have control of the ingredients and the minerals, and I'm thinking as supplements are really popular. They've been for a long time. People are often looking at like this strange root in Africa that makes this and this. I think if you could find some really specific health benefits of seaweed and try to concentrate it,
Mm.
it could be a very popular
Mhm.
supplement if you market it the right
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. I definitely think so, and I think there's a lot of potential in in good quality seaweed, and we are at the moment, we're selling a product that is very little processed. It could be that we find some really interesting angles to extract some really interesting stuff out of seaweed. But um, there's also the point to be made that processing can be really interesting, but maybe also very little processed food, it can also have a great potential. I think the same way as when we think about production, we always think, oh, we have to produce so much, we have to, how many tons can you produce, and how much can we, everything has to be big, and everything has to be really up there. And Faroese mentality is very much, the first question you're asked if you try to produce something is, how much can you produce? And for me, it's that's not really the interesting question at this point, because it's more like, how much can you sell your production for, which is interesting, because if you can sell it for a lot, then you don't have much. And the same thing goes with um, try to look at your raw material. Maybe you don't have to over process it. Maybe you can just eat it as it is. I don't know, but I think we have a way to always go a little bit further. And because if you want to take just one molecule out, or a little piece of the raw material, then you need the energy to do these processes. You may take your molecule out, but does the molecule function when you take it out, or does it only function properly when it's together with the entire package of raw material? So all these things, I think we have gone down that lane with over processing food, and a lot of the problems we have with both obesity and not getting enough fibers and all that is mostly due to over processed food. So maybe we should also think, how can we use this raw material, and how can we, I mean, if there's something in it that's not good, then maybe we should consider how to get rid of it. But
Yeah.
if I think we have a tendency to always go down those a little bit, you know maybe we can take the easy solution sometimes also.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. As it's like we have in the West, how can we make everything as precise as possible, but it becomes
Yeah,
unnatural if you're
yeah,
always looking for that
yeah.
specific. What's the specific healthy thing? But it's not the specific
Hmm.
healthy thing. It's like the whole. Like
Yeah,
I just
because
3 months.
if you take the specific ingredient out, then maybe it doesn't function anymore, and then you have to
Yeah,
do some chemical reaction to get it to function again. But if you just left it in there and ate the whole thing, then you did maybe so high a concentration, but at least it was functioning. So it's very interesting, because I think it's a very common way for people to think, and I also do it. I mean, I also think like that, and I maybe, oh, we can produce more and do all these things. But I have been thinking that with seaweeds, it's the whole package. And
yeah.
yeah,
We just had the same conversation we had as in the sea. If you produce too much in the sea, like there's a balance in the ecosystem, and here like you have
yeah,
the internal ecosystem. If you only
yeah,
go for specific nutrients, people are very like, I got 25 supplements, and every morning I take each of them, and like you measure
yeah,
everything,
yeah,
and like there has to be none of that, and not
yeah,
only this kind of fat, and only this kind of this and
yeah,
that, and these kind of proteins. And
mhm,
so
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
why not just eat as natural as possible? Just eat
yeah,
green, eat natural, not processed, and
yeah,
without the colors and all these things which you get normally.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one way to do it. Yeah. So
How
yeah,
how 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 big is your company?
uh, person wise, employees, or
Yeah, employees or
yeah,
just
yeah.
in everything.
So
How
we
much moving? How many employees? How much are you growing?
yeah, yeah. So well, we are two people who, like, it's me and my brother who own and run the company. And then we have at the moment we have two people working every day with us. They are like interns. And then we have two or three other people who work sometimes when we need them. So, but we have like two full-time employed people, and then a couple of interns, and then we call in people, when we have very busy periods.
Yeah,
And we have two licenses. So we have a land-based cultivation license in a village on Suðuroy called Fambjon. That's where we have our hatchery site. That's where we do all the initial processes of seeding ropes and all that. That's where the biology happens, and that's my job. And then we have the sea farm, which is in a different location in Kaldbaksfjörður, just north of Tórshavn. And that's and my brother, he is in charge of that, and that's where we put out the seeded
Mm.
ropes, and that's where it grows, and then we harvest it, and then we collaborate with it's called Hutbische,
Yeah.
FMP, Ferromarine Products. They are based in Lorvik. They are specialists in drying, so their business is all about drying fish heads. So we many years ago we approached them and said, so we'd like to start drying seaweed. Could you help us out? And that collaboration has been going on for many years. And we also have like our license to mill and to pack and finish our products there. But we are in the process of trying to move our like packing facilities to Tvøroyri, since I have moved to a different island now. I'm living in the island where the hatchery is based. And with time, our hatchery building is big enough to gather our entire production at one location. So the plan is that everything besides what happens on the sea farm will be happening in Famjon, in our building there. But we only have had this building for a year, so we're not totally ready. But so we focused on getting the hatchery up and running. So in a few years we will have the larger part of our production going on in this village called Famjon. But probably the large scale drying would still take place at the FMP facilities, because they have space and there's no for us to go ahead and create and get those facilities on running when somebody else already has them. So that's also one way to work more sustainable and to collaborate instead of building new things, and we have a
Yeah.
very good collaboration with them.
Yeah, it seems like you're more research focused. You're advancing to research, because in a company you're of course always advancing, like new markets, more production.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
if you say like what you value most, is it new research? Is it the better markets, or is it the? Would you say you're a research focused company,
Yeah,
or?
I know. I would maybe our research is has been more biologically based, because and maybe that's not a good thing for the company. I mean, we should rather be focusing on entering new markets. But I guess my background as a biologist is pulling me in that direction, because I feel that if I am using nature to produce, I want to do it in the best way possible. And my experience tells me that if I'm very careful with the methods we use for production, then we also end up with really good quality. So those things seem to go really well hand in hand. And we should probably try to invest in people with market skills in our company, because that is a lack. Really it is. But that's a matter of affording it. So we're slowly building ourselves up, and we would like to maybe at some point have people come work for us who can do marketing, who can do all those angles. And we would also want to maybe have researchers that could do more experimental work on, like we talked about earlier, what can this biomass do? Can we go for specific compounds? So that's also maybe a direction in future.
And what I'm thinking is like, if you find cities that are well known for food, let's say Paris or somewhere a bit away from the Nordic, and you can try to introduce them. Hey, did you know there's a lot of potential in seaweed? We're innovating a lot in seaweed. and then you can get, if you get some high profile customers, like some big Michelin chefs using it,
Yeah.
and then asking them like, this is a dish, this guy is doing this delicious dish, this guy's doing this delicious dish. So if you got like all this delicious dish where they're using your ingredients, they could be very easy to go
Yeah.
to other cities with other famous restaurants and doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's true. And also to, I think, we could be much more out there. We could talk much more about our products and what we do. But that's also, we do need a person that is more, also has more better abilities, on social media and all these things, because we I guess our focus is much on just doing our work really, really well, and then sometimes we forget to tell the story. Um, but yeah, it's just, it's difficult to do all things at once, and
Yeah, it is. It's like where can you focus your resources now? But at one point, it's not how good your product is, it's how good your product is and the perceived value of your product. Because if nobody knows about this
mm,
good product that you have,
yeah, yeah, it's true.
that
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah. So everything, both sides are very necessary, and I am aware of that. It's just, my talents probably are most focused on the biological part. So, I feel more comfortable in that part. And, but, things will happen, just takes time. This is a
Yeah,
part of reaching out also.
all in due course.
Yeah.
Are you? Is the company only focused on seaweed, or is there anything else you grow?
Um, No, no. At this point, we only grow seaweed, but we collaborate with the salmon industry. But we do not grow other things. Um, but maybe we have been talking about maybe entering other cultivation areas, but at this point, I think we feel that we have more than enough to just. To manage what we have and to do what we do the best way possible. But we are very open for collaborations, and for example, we have been collaborating with Fair Isle Distilleries. I don't know if you know about them, the new guys on the market with vodka and gin and all these things. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, and that has been quite interesting because they have a lot of focus on Faroese ingredients, working with local ingredients and tastes and all that. And I think those sorts of collaboration. And we have also through many years worked with restaurants in the Faroes and cooks and all these people who work in that field and are very focused on Faroese raw material, and that also brings a very strong and interesting aspect to what we do, because we become more aware of oh yeah, we are providing local ingredients and we are focused on quality, and that's what a lot of businesses are really, really interested in. So it's those sorts of collaborations can be very inspiring for us, and also teach us to see the value in what we do, because sometimes some days your job is just something that you do, and you can it's not sometimes it's not that easy to see the true value of what you're trying to do. And so collaborations do give us quite a lot of input also.
Yeah, I think also it's so important today that you're focused on partnerships and collaborations, because in the
Hmm.
old days, like, you had to fly and people were not used to Zoom, and so yeah, I'll talk to you next month because I'm going to be in that city. So you have to you move slow. Now you can do
Yeah,
so fast collaborations, and people are getting
yeah,
businesses getting more used to using Zoom, and everything's much easier. When I started selling fish, I do a collaboration with Blue Lobster. They have all the restaurants. I can manage the logistics from the Faroe Islands. I'll fly the fish. Actually, we have not done much more with it, but a company called Science Brew, they do beers from leftovers, and the beer it falls down the malt, and the leftovers they make crackers out of them. And the beers are actually made from leftovers from restaurants, like rice from sushi restaurants. And then I ordered a bag of seaweed from ocean rainforest, and we made like a lot of these crackers out of Faroe seaweed. We have not mass produced them. They have not managed it. They have a small oven, so they don't produce much. But it's like if you have an idea, they make that, we make that. Let's try to make this product together.
Yeah. I think that's a good way forward, and there's no need to build up facilities, in all places. You can just rent facilities from each other and help each other out in that way. I think that's a good way to collaborate, and it's a good way to stay sustainable also.
Yeah. Where do you see the company in 5 years?
I see us running a very, very nice facility in Fambion, and also adding to the local area there, and probably continuing down the lane with high quality seaweed for food, and probably we can add a few more products to our production. And hopefully we can also be a part of bringing more sustainability into the salmon production with this shelter, and the seaweed that is coming into the salmon aquaculture, and maybe replacing plastic products, and then turning seaweed the rest into biogas, and we are on our way to become a company focused on having a neutral CO2 budget, or even being negative in that way. So we are definitely going for high quality and very, very high sustainability aims for our company, and also being placed in a quite remote Faroese village is also interesting, because we are creating something in a local area where there's absolutely nothing else going on. I'm the only person who drives to this village to go to work. All the rest, they are going in the other direction. So hopefully we can be a part of also bringing more income to that area of the country, and maybe give something to build the tourism, or to focus the tourism better in Suðuroy and in the Faroe Islands. Also knowledge-wise, with my background as a biologist, I do teach. I teach at the Faroese University once in a while, and I also teach, whoever calls me. I mean, kindergarten classes, and I tell them, come to Fambion, and I will give you a tour, and I will give a talk, and we can do whatever level they're on. And I think that's one way that our company can give insights into sustainability, and how to do the best productions, and how to take care of our oceans and our area. I guess for me as a biologist, that is one of the aims with what I'm trying to do. I don't want to be in charge of a production that is not sustainable, and yeah, so I think for me there are many angles to this, but I do hope that we will be able to survive and build a solid company that where we can employ a few more people, and just do a really, really good job with what we're trying to do.
I'm certain that you'll survive. I'm thinking maybe if you got to a place where everything is working, you have all
Yeah.
the channels selling. Maybe you could take your sustainability seaweed and try to set up a farm in other countries. Do you see that as a possibility?
Yeah. Yeah, or collaborate with local people from other areas, to be a part of building businesses up.
Like
Yeah.
franchising.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not called. If you got something really good and you learned how to do it, you just say, "Here, we will show you. You can set it up, and we'll also help you sell it."
Yeah. I mean, there are
Yeah,
many possibilities. At this point, I feel really lucky that I'm able to go to work in one of the most beautiful villages in the islands, and be able to work with really clean seawater, and get things to grow and produce a biomass that is of a very high quality. So that makes me really happy, and also that I'm able to use my skills in a setup like that. And then, when we have teaching sessions, in the old days I used to go to Torshavn, to the university there, and teach, but now I tell people that I would love to teach, but you have to come to Famjun. So it's also a way to start building this place as a place that you can go to get knowledge on seaweed production and just seaweed biology. And so I think, in a few years' time, I think our old building will be turned into, maybe more like a center of seaweed knowledge and production.
yeah,
That would be really nice. Yeah, that could attract people both. I mean, it's only months ago since I had a master student who finalized her thesis, and now she's on the west coast of the States having a job there as a biologist, and so
yeah. I think many tourists are very happy to come and see like real stuff in the Faroe Islands.
yeah, yeah,
So I think if you could put it out there, if you want to see this as how we
mm,
do this, the inventions,
yeah,
people are really happy to see these things. What's
yeah.
happening? How's the culture? What are you doing? What are you inventing?
Yeah, and we are right there. I mean, we are very centrally based in Famjun, but it's of course a very tiny village. But we are in the biggest building, and mostly, our door is open, so people can just stick their heads in and see what's going on. And if somebody's interested, we will invite them in and explain what's going on. And yeah, so I think, it's things are happening as we speak. But of course, we bought a very old building, and a building that needs repair, but we're trying to do it bit by bit so that we can financially also survive while we get the building up and running, and just doing it bit by bit is our idea at this point.
Agnes, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Tara.
And thank you so much for sharing your journey, your knowledge in seaweed, and telling us about your very exciting company.
Yeah,
And,
thank you very much for having me.
I wish you guys all the best. And I will be keeping an eye on your developments.
Yeah, yeah,
I
you can
have
swing.
I have tried your product, but I've just tried it in the setting where there's a stand. But I have to try it cooking at home one day.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to try.
Great. Have a great evening.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.